Hello everyone, Chaos here, and welcome to another Oldschool Runescape video. In one of our previous uploads, we saw how to level up our skills in the fastest ways possible. A lot of these included expensive methods for chunky gains, which not a lot of players may be able to afford. And this time around, we are looking at the other side of the coin to get as much money as possible from your grind to those 99s. Scapers, if you enjoyed this upload, you would help me out massively by subscribing with notifications on, dropping a fat like, and if you want to share your gains with our community, join our Discord server with a link in the description. One big disclaimer for this video. When it comes to combat-related moneymakers, I won't be taking bosses or raids that rely on their uniques for high GP per hour, since you could go heavily dry and I really don't want to give you false expectations. Also, the methods on this list are either dangerous, needing a generous amount of starting cash, or needing a lot of skill to achieve the desired GP per hour. Just like the previous video, I'll also include some alternatives in case you want to try a different method, and that being said, grab your favorite drink and snack, and let's begin. Let's switch things up for this video and go in the opposite order, starting with farming. What's mandatory for iron accounts to do throughout their entire lifetime is something you can do for massive GP per trip and per hour with just a few minutes every now and then. For this, we are going to plant the best herb possible and gather them every 80 minutes to sell back at the Grand Exchange for a massive profit. Go to Google and type OSRS herb calculator. This will bring up a wiki page where you can input things like your level, your anime patch, what type of compost you use, and your achievement diaries, just to mention a few. When all the information is there, order the list by profit per run to see what to plant. This depends on your level and many other factors, but never forget to plant expensive seeds on patches that cannot catch disease. Like pretty much all gathering skills, money making via woodcutting is not as profitable nowadays because of so many PVM sources dropping either logs or planks. Regardless, a good balance between speed and profit per hour is by chopping mahogany logs. This one is a little more annoying because on average, they are a little farther away from a bank. Some options include north of the farming guild, northeast of Priffinus, or even the ones you grow on Fossil Island. With your best axe and hopefully your lumberjack outfit and forestry kit, this is sadly the best GP per hour for a woodcutting skill, which is not really attractive at not more than 250k GP per hour, if doing it with other people for that forestry boost. For firemaking, we go back to the old reliable Winter Toad. The 2023 version of this video had cremating Urium Shade remains as the best money maker, but because of inflation, you will barely break even when doing that activity. And that leaves us with the only other way to make money through firemaking. If you're watching this video on release and don't have level 99 firemaking yet, I would wait until the new changes go live so we can actually stack reward crates. This is one of the methods for which I don't have a definitive GP per hour for you, because the loot is going to depend on your other skills to get resources like logs, seeds, or herbs. Regardless, no GP input is needed here to make a ton of money with this quick minigame. The cooking skill has always been and will almost always be profitable if processing the correct pieces of food. Before we get into those, remember that there is an objectively accurate way to boost both profit and experience per hour, and that is by using a range close to a bank. Some of the best ones include the Mids Guild, the Cooking Guild, and the Hosidius Kitchen, just to mention a few. And hey, even Catherby for the low and the mid levels. The cool part about it is that as long as you're level 30 to start cooking tuna, every fish after that will be profitable. I would personally recommend waiting a few levels to start cooking the next item to avoid burning as many pieces of food as possible, but remember that the cooking gauntlets will help you out with some of these. When you get the cooking cape, you will never burn food when wearing it. Fishing suffers the same fate as woodcutting, and sadly, catching anything other than high-level fish is just not as profitable as it used to be when we all caught the lobsters at Karamja or Catherby. Currently, the quote-unquote best money per hour with the fishing skills is dissecting sacred eels, which is a little weird because you're not even getting food. For this method, you need a fishing rod, fishing bait, and a knife. And I highly recommend you get spirit flakes from Temperos before your grind, since these have a 50% chance to catch 2 fish at once, but will give you experience for just 1. Since we are not here for experience, that extra sacred eel will make the inventory fill faster, provide additional Zulrah scales, and naturally increasing GP per hour. For smithing, we go back to the blast furnace, but this time we are using the highest bar available instead of gold ore for experience. For this, it's almost mandatory to get a callback because of how this method works, and be aware that without it, this will be less than half of the advertised GP per hour. Thanks to the blast furnace special effect, you only need half the coal to melt a bar you normally need at a regular furnace or by casting the superheat spell in the normal spellbook. This means that rune bars only require 4 coal, for example. Fill the furnace with up to 254 coal, and then throw in whatever material you want for the desired metal bar. GP per hour depends on what materials you use, but if you want a less GP and something more AFK, mithril and adamant dart tips are also a good idea. For mining, we will use a method that was refurbished a few months ago, and for it, we won't be gathering any resources, but going to Volcano instead. This scaling update gave us a choice between higher experience or higher resource gains at the scaling boss in Perfinis, and by going the resource route, you will be greatly rewarded. I say greatly because this is still not one of the absolute best moneymakers in the game, but for mining, it comes at the number 1 spot. For higher experience gains, you want to do this activity in a smaller group, and for resources, you want KCs to end relatively quickly. So joining the mass Volcano world will naturally give you more profit per hour. A safe hunter moneymaker is catching one of the newest creatures by the name Moonlight Antelope. Requiring level 91 hunter to catch via pitfalls, these creatures can be found in the basement of the hunter guild. You will need a teasing stick, a knife, and some logs to make the traps, and then lure them whenever they are ready. To make this method more competitive GP per hour, you will also need a meat pouch to store meat, a fur pouch to store all the fur obtained from the antelopes, and a chisel to use on the antlers in order to make the popular Moonlight crossbow bolts. You will need to do more actions per hour, but the reward is well worth it. In case you have an iron will, hunting black chinchompas in the wilderness provides more GP per hour, but being ass blasted by PKers will surely be a hit to the mental. When it comes to Slayer, a lot of monsters rely on their expensive drops to maintain decent GP per hour. And even if it wasn't the GP it used to be back when I remember grinding at this boss, the Alchemical Hydra is still the best consistent moneymaker through the Slayer skill when you get one of these tasks from Konar. What I personally do is taking my Bone Crusher necklace to extend my trips, meaning I bury the bones as soon as I drop. For the highest payout per trip, you obviously want to avoid doing this, but keep in mind that your trips are going to be a lot quicker. This doesn't affect us too much because the bank is just outside the dungeon, and the Hydra shortcut is actually decent this time around thanks to the shortcut update. Fletching is a pretty easy one with a ton of profitable methods because if you look at it, it's just a boring bank standing skill you only want to do if you have some AFK time on your hands. Something that doesn't give you a ton of downtime but a nice chunk of profit is adding diamond tips to adamant bolts. These will almost always be needed because of their powerful special effect, and this is also surprisingly great XP per hour, clocking in at up to 200k per hour. For a more balanced approach to XP and GP gains, you can try items such as unfinished longbows, stringing longbows, and crafting gem tips, just to mention a few. This is one of the few skills where it's harder to lose money rather than gain it. You can mix and match to try any combination that suits you in your journey to 99 or a ton of money. On the other side of the coin, we have skills like crafting. Whenever I think about it, it's almost always quick XP per hour at a hefty price. But crafting drift nets in Fossil Island is one of the few reliable ways to make money through the skill, and it has surprisingly low cost. An interesting thing about them is that they will almost always be needed because a lot of people prefer training both fishing and hunter through the drift net fishing activity. You will need 2 jute fiber for every drift net, providing upwards of 500k per hour if you decided to AFK just a little bit. Thieving is pretty much the only skill in both this list and the fastest training methods, because oddly enough, row chests in the wilderness are both the highest experience and GP per hour in their category. As we are here to make money, I'll assume you're not a hardcore account, so if you die every now and then, you're not going to lose anything too precious. Grab a looting bag, prayer potions, and the best and cheapest prayer enhancing gear you can get. With Protect from melee active, click on the chests every time they close, and the loot will go directly into your looting bag. This is also a decent source of hard clues in case you're looking for collection logs, and you could land on a lucky 3rd age roll. The best herblore method for GP per hour hasn't changed since the last time we made a video like this, and we go back to the degrime spell in the Arceus spellbook. In the past, you would get clean herbs by cleaning them yourself, or by going to Zahur in Narda. Thanks to this spell, you can now clean an entire inventory of herbs with a single click, and it's extremely quick to cast. Before you buy a ton of supplies, I recommend looking up the degrime spell on the wiki and seeing what the most profitable herb is. Keep in mind you will obviously need the herblore level to clean them, but if you can't do this for higher tier herbs, XP per hour with the spell is pretty decent, and even the level 60s and 70s will feel like an absolute breeze. For agility, we have a brand new method, and if you want the absolute highest GP per hour while also getting up to 50k agility XP per hour, there's no better way than the revamped Wilderness Agility course. When you pay 150k to the dispenser in the entrance, you'll be able to tag it every lap, giving you both supplies and resources. Obviously, the longer you stay here, the more GP per hour, and not only because of less banking, but the risk versus reward here is amazing, because the more laps, the more loot you will receive after every multiple of 10. Grab the best tank gear you're comfortable losing in case you get shafted by PKers, and if this doesn't sound like a good idea, sticking to the Hallowed Sepulchre will be the second best option. Construction is simply a gold sink, and to make the best quote-unquote GP per hour, we'll be training at Mahogany Homes. What I mean by this is that we are training construction by losing the lowest amount of money needed, and this activity is exactly what we need for budget training. You can check out my new training methods video from a couple of weeks ago to learn about the more important changes that makes this activity even better. What I mentioned in my previous video is that the only realistic way to make money as well as construction experience was to train Winter Toad and repairing braziers, or by doing PVMing and hoping to get lucky at either long or curved bones. To any normal person, this is going to sound demented, but it's literally the only way to do it. The best GP per hour for runecrafting has changed thanks to the same shortcut buffs that helped us with the alchemical hydra, and the shortcut northeast of Shiloh village now makes crafting double nature runes the best GP per hour with this skill, toppling wrath runes by just a few 100k GP per hour. Again, if you want to learn more about it, go watch my updated scaling video because doing this is even better than before. Grab your runecrafting outfit, colossal pouch, and a mandatory requirement is obviously your diary cape. You'll be teleporting to the 7th option, and with a quick teleport to a bank, you'll be making nearly 3 million GP per hour. Plank make is an activity I almost feel bad mentioning at this point because I've used it in so many of my videos. But hear me out. Thanks to the Lunar Spellbook, turning mahogany logs into planks can be either AFK or super fast with manual clicks. Since we are going for the highest GP per hour, we'll be spam clicking the spellbook like degenerates. Not only will this provide the highest payout possible with a magic skill, but by doing this manually, XP per hour will also shoot through the roof. It is important to mention that you will always want to stick to mahogany planks because they are the only profitable log at the time of making this video, and it's not like you need construction levels to turn certain logs into planks. We didn't use this method for fire making, but cremating Urium remains is the only way to get even just a little bit of profit by getting prayer experience. You'll need to get lucky at those chests, and doing those elites or masters will add some nice cash to the total. Like I would have said before, I highly recommend doing the hard and elite Mauritania diary for additional experience in both skills, because if you don't do it, you'll have to do this activity for much longer and potentially lose a little bit of cash in the process. If Urium remains and the redwood pyre logs ever drop in price, give them a try because they are a pretty nice dopamine-friendly activity. Last time we tackled this topic, we featured the Phantom Muspa as the best GP per hour with ranged. Because of Ancient Essence massively tanking in price, the Leviathan with at least a Bofa is now the king of GP per hour if you want to gain a ton of profitable ranged experience. I say at least a Bofa because my preferred weapon is a Zerite crossbow, but you don't need the best in slot gear for this DT2 boss. I say this because the better you get, all DT2 bosses have a mechanic that makes you get 50% additional common loot if you do perfect KCs. This is one of the few instances in the game where the better you are at PVMing, the more consistent loot you will get. So make sure to avoid all of those rocks, lightning, and not miss volley of attacks to work your way to one of those expensive uniques or even the pet. The last method on this list is for melee, and for the highest GP per hour we'll be doing at least 2 Colosseum runs per hour. The quiver alone is worth a 2.5 million GP when converting it to 4,000 Sunfire Splinters, but all the additional loot you gain through the waves will nearly double each run. This is even better when you see pieces of the Sunfire Fanatic armor, Echo Crystals, and if the gods bless you with good RNG, the Tonal Sticks of Ralos is a lottery item we are looking for. As of October of 2024, the Fortis Colosseum is the best and the most difficult way of making consistent money from bosses, whose GP per hour does not rely on RNG. Boys and girls, that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you enjoyed and you learned something useful. If you did, tell us what your favorite moneymaker in the game is and why, and if you include the term RSN and your username in your comment, you'll be entered in our weekly bond giveaway for which we will pick a winner on Friday's stream. I want to give a massive thank you to all the people you see on this list for financially supporting this channel, all of which goes towards my wife and my puppy to keep them nice and healthy. If you want to be a part of this list of legends, click the join button below to see all of the cool perks and rewards you can get in the videos, in the live streams, and of course in the Discord. In the next one, we may go over how to kill every new baby boss in the wilderness, giving you all the tips I have learned for the best chance at survival. For now, I hope you have an amazing day, have an amazing week, and I will see you then. Peace.